Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be painting a watercolor seascape. The first thing that I've done is I've taped down my cold press watercolor paper, and I'm using a flat brush and I'm just saturating that paper. I'm not doing it where it's soaking wet puddles, we just want it to have a slight shine to it. Then I'm going to go into a darker blue. I'm just going to drop it in there. And then I'm just going to spread that out as much as I want. So I want this to be a very blended, almost ethereal type sky. And I'm dropping in a little bit of yellow, being careful not to mix it too much with the blue to create a green. So we're really blending that flat brush down. And I'm picking up pigment as I'm going. So this is just going to be our first layer, which we're going to build on top of. I'm going in with a gray tone up in the sky. And then I want to make sure to add some really bright colors. So I'm doing some orange colors, some vibrant pink, and I'm mixing that together to create a sunrise or a sunset. And this is, again, the first flat layer. And as we go on, we're going to keep building on top of that. So I'm dropping in orange while it's still wet, this orangey yellow. And I'm definitely working faster during this process because we want to continue to work wet into wet. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more blue in some spots. And I'm just going to add a gray to the top here because I want this setting to be sort of dusk. So the sky is beginning to turn dark, but you're seeing those beautiful tones fade out. I'm using a round brush and I'm adding a little bit more blue and I'm blending it out. I'm just going to continue this process until I'm happy with my first layer. I'm adding in that orangey red tone closer to the horizon line. And I'm making sure to just blend out as much as I can while it's still wet. Because once it dries, you're not going to be able to blend those harsh lines out. And that's one thing with watercolor. If you're working with this method, you just really need to work quickly. And you don't want to use too much water. You just want your brush to have enough water in it so that we can create these blends. You can see as I pull that water down, it's creating a lighter gradient. And then mixing that in with the yellow. Then I want to add a little bit of a purple, almost like a neon pink to the horizon line because I want those like cotton candy vibes going on in there. And again, if you know, if this dries and maybe you want to change it up, you can change up the second layer, but right now we're just putting down our base. And I've used washi tape to tape down my paper. I don't have regular drafting tape right now, so it isn't the best, my tape, but it'll make do. We just really want to make sure that page is down so it's not buckling and lifting up. But it is easy to overwork, so stop yourself. I'm going in with some masking fluid here, and this is going to save the white of my paper so that when I go over it with blue of the ocean, I will be able to peel this up later to reveal the white parts. And this is going to act as almost like the foam that you see, those little in the waves, so you'll see the white spots. So I'm just dabbing that on. This will be the seashore right here. And this will be where the waves are crashing. And then I'm going to have some bubbles in there as if the wave is being pulled back into the ocean where you can see the seashore almost coming back in. And then in the distance, we will have some water. So I'm just doing little speckles, and these will be sort of like my little sparkles on the water, some of them, and some will just act as that foam on the wave. And again, this is add as many or as little as you want. This is just a really great technique. Once that is dry on top, I'm gonna peel up my tape, and then I'm going to start with my ocean. So first we'll put in some sand, and I have mixed up a very light brown coral color for my underpainting here. And I'm just going to add that in, and again, we're going to build up layers. You don't want to go in too dark at first because it's really hard to reverse dark in watercolor. I'm going to incorporate this very light sienna for my sand color. And now I'm going to start incorporating some of the sky reflections into the water. So I know that that water isn't going to be completely blue because I want the reflections of the sky. So I'm starting to incorporate that pink in there, and I'm just blending that out. This is again our bottom layer. And then as I build up, you'll be able to see. So I'm adding in some blue. I'm going back in with some blue, and we are going to create our horizon line. So I'm going in with a deeper blue. I'm mixing up the perfect shade of blue that I feel that I want, adding in a little bit of gray, a little Payne's gray to deepen that up because I do want it darker towards the horizon. So I'm doing a line here. And if it's not perfect, you can go in while it's still wet and lift that up. I'm using my flat brush. But it's okay if we have a little bit of wave there. Then I'm pulling that color down and I'm blending it with the paper. And I'm going to start to create some waves. So as that paper going down is a little drier now, I'm just going to create waves within it to sort of sketch out where I want all of my waves to be. And this is very like serene. We're not doing like stormy ocean. It's going to be just gentle waves. I'm going to go back in with that beachy tone color, and we are going to add some deepness along the shore underneath where the waves would sort of come up onto the sand. Again, we're just building up layers. Just be sure to blend that out before it dries. And I am basically just using a flat brush and a round brush for this entire painting. I'm dropping in some more hints of sand and just a little bit of warmth into that area. Letting that dry below, and then I'm going to start adding some more shadows into my waves. So I'm adding this very dark, bright blue into my waves. And I'm just trying to imagine like this wave might be coming up and sort of slowly crashing onto the beach. And in the back, very subtle waves. I'm just gonna blend. Now I'm incorporating a little bit of green because there are lots of different shades in water when you're at the beach, and when you see that green tone, it gives you that look of almost like a translucent color. So it's a great tone to use when you are creating an ocean. And I'm just working quickly while it's still damp so that I can blend those waves out. And this is a little bit more of a looser style. We're not doing extreme realism here, but we do not want too much harsh lines. So I'm going to blend those out while it's still able to be blended. Just keep working in different shades of blue. Just create some depth and some movement in the water. And create these lines in the front, sort of as if the wave is retracting from the beach. So it's almost like the water is being pulled back into the ocean, and you can sort of see some of the sand through the water. So I'm blending that out. And then I'm dropping in more of that sand color. So see how I'm blending that in as quickly as I can. I'm just going to keep blending just so everything looks cohesive. And now you can still see the paper is still pretty damp, so I am dropping in some darker tones, this brown color, and I'm sort of outlining again where that wave would be. This is just adding some shadows and some dimension into the painting. Adding some more sand color. I think it's starting to build up, but you can maybe see it a little clearer now. And then I'm going back in with a darker blue, and I am creating some more waves. And a good thing about the cold press paper is it does let you build those layers, and it does retain the moisture. So it's not completely dry yet. We're in that little bit of that stage where it's sort of wet into damp, and it's such a lovely, lovely thing to work with. So now I'm just adding some very light shades. It's almost like a grayish blue, and I'm just adding more of that into those waves. Still working as quickly as I can. If you want to use your brush, you can dry it out and lift some of that pigment up while it's still damp, and that's going to sort of create almost like a wave is curling. So I'm adding a little bit of a turquoise into there. And these little subtle colors, they will add up in the end. Now it might seem like, oh, we don't need all those colors, but it just adds so much interest when you know a little bit about color theory. Still adding in those beachy colors. And now I want that reflection of that hot pink to be on that water, on the shore. And now these are the lines that are going to sort of define where that water is being pulled back into the ocean. So this is a very light sand tone, and we are doing those squiggly lines, and it's not straight across, it's sort of on a slant. And I'm just putting them in. I'm not overly thinking it. You can use a reference photo for this. Sharpening up that horizon line there with the darker blue. And just adding in some more waves until you're happy with it. I want to add this beautiful purple onto my horizon line. I really want to layer this sky to make it really, really beautiful. So I'm working with that, and I'm actually working with the blue on the horizon line. I'm making sure that blends ever so slightly. Do this on the same thing on this opposite side. That purple is just it for me. I love that color. Blending in a little pink with this purple. And then making sure to load my brush with a little water so that we can blend that out seamlessly. And you can leave some of the layer underneath exposed. But this is going to be my second layer in the sky, and I'm just building up those colors. Just blending. I want to add a little bit more blue in the upper sky. because like I said, it's turning into night, so it's gonna sort of like, as the sun sets, all the colors are going into the ocean, and then the sky will turn dark. Just using that flat brush to blend out. Going back in and adding again those reflections into the water and onto the shore. They're subtle, but they're important. I'm going to layer again, another layer on top of the sand here. Watercolor there's a lot of layering. It doesn't need to be, you don't have to layer, but to really build up details, working with layers it's just going to give you that look. I've waited for that paper to completely dry, and now we are peeling up that masking fluid. I'm just using my finger. They do make tools for this, or you can use a paper towel, but now you can see the white of the paper coming through, and this is going to give you the look of the foamy water, or the bubbles on the water, and it just looks so beautiful. I'm just going to keep getting off as much as we can without sacrificing the paper, because sometimes if you're not careful, the paper will peel, so try to feel it out. I'm going to go in and add some shadows underneath those waves where it would be right on top of the beach, and then I'm going to add in these little tiny, just little markings, and this could be bubbles, this could be shadows, could be rocks. I'm just going to blend that in. Going back in with the blue, adding a little bit more detail in the water. I'm just going to keep building layers. So I'm using that beachy, I keep calling it the beachy tone. That's my sand color. It's like a brown mixed with a little bit of yellow. I'm using a darker brown once that first layer is dry, and I really want to build up some shadow there. Start putting in a little bit more details into my waves, getting down to the final layers before we put our highlights on. So I just want to create some movement in there now that that bottom layer has the sort of mapping that we have decided on. Just using little small strokes and letting my brush just sort of glide along the paper. You see it's starting to create some movement, subtle waves. I'm just going to use some acrylic gouache to pull out more of that white. So I'm using just straight out of the tube, and I'm mixing that up, making a nice mixture, adding a little water, and I'm going to put these subtle, very light strokes on top of the water. And then you're going to start to see how this is sort of like the water. Little bubbles on top. It's receding back into the ocean. It's such a nice way to bring out highlights. I'm doing that same pattern where it's not just straight, it's kind of on a slant, and the waters are going different ways. And this isn't going to be like in your face white. It's very subtle. It dries a little bit less opaque than this. So as it's drying, you can also build up those layers. But I don't want it to be white. I just want it to sort of be a little bit of a translucent where it's still water. Then I'm going to just stipple on to create these little bubbles in the front at the shoreline. Tiny little dots. You can go crazy with this. It's kind of hard to stop sometimes, but yeah. See how I'm just gonna build it back up, and I'm gonna do the same thing within the water, just capping off some of those waves. Making these little tiny dots, these little stars, little sparkles on the water. Little X shapes to create some little, almost like it's sparkling down the center. And just pull out wherever you feel like you want to highlight a little bit more. You could do this also by creating more masking, using more masking fluid within the water in the beginning. I'm using a very fine brush, and I am stippling on some little dots in the water to create some bubbles. And I kind of want a little bit of texture, so I'm putting it on thick. And when that dries, it'll have a little texture on there. And it's just a fun way to elevate your watercolor paintings and just give it a little bit of life. Little bubbles. And you can keep doing this for as many as you want or as little as you want. If you don't like too many, you could stop. But I'm just adding some little sparkles, really bringing them out because I think they're pretty. And see how that top layer is dried, so I can go back in if I want, and I can put another layer on top if I want it to really be white. But you could see it's not super white, and it gives you that nice translucent look. I filmed this and it got cut off, so these are the birds, and I'm gonna do it on this separate sheet because unfortunately it got cut off. So you don't have to go crazy with these. I'm using a very tiny brush. You just want to create the little body, and it doesn't have to be super detailed. And then we are going to create some wings. So they're going to be in the distance. So you're not going to be able to see the face or the tail or anything like that. You'll see the wings. So this one's body is facing, I don't know, whatever direction it is. So maybe it's on the side there. So he's looking forward. And then this one is a simple way to do it. You know, I think we've learned this sort of in elementary school. There's a little body, and then the wings come out, and he's flying straight into the distance. This body is flying, I don't know. This brush is messed up. Don't be like me. Make sure you keep your brushes nice. But here are some wings. Look, he looks like he's flying towards us. Let's try this one. So there's just a little body, and it's sort of just like an ovally shape, and then maybe you want to put, look at it. This is what happens when you don't store your brush nice. But we gotta make do. And then I'm going like that. So I'm using the tip of that brush, dragging down and creating a wing, and that one's sort of, he's like in flight where his wings are down. And then I guess that's his tail, and he's flying down. And then this one is just in the distance, flying off, a little bit more realistic than the one that we did in the middle there. And look, you can see his little feet. Okay, this one's on the side a little, and there's his wing going up. This is his face, there's his tail, and then his wing will have to go up that way, but it's behind him. So this wing's in the front, and so he's kind of flying towards us on an angle. I'm gonna go back in, do all my final little details, and we're just gonna let it dry completely before we pull up that tape from the edges, and you are all done. I did not plan for this to be a tutorial, so I really hope that this was helpful. And if you would like to purchase a print of either one of my seascapes, I will have them linked below. And I could also teach you how I make my prints. If you are interested in that, let me know below. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned something new. And if you did, I would love it, love it, love it if you would like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me get my stuff out there. And I will see you next time.